Standing on the overground, surrounded by the inky dark of night, smelling of perfume, with a bottle of sparkling wine in my bag, and not a single wet wipe about my person, I was hit by one thought like an absolute body blow. Nobody on this whole train can even tell I'm a mother. It was the first time I'd left my little corner of London at night for over a year. As the orange train snaked through the sky above Dalston, Highbury and Canonbury, I felt like an astronaut floating away from my base. I was hung, suspended between excitement, fear, liberation and guilt. It was my friend Sarah's birthday, and having a tiny baby of her own, she'd organised a drinks party at her house with the theme of pyjamas and sequins. Wear a ball gown or your nightie, but nothing in between, she'd written to a WhatsApp group made of friends, mothers, women from her children's school, and me, her wild camping and outdoor swimming partner. So there I was, leaning up against the train door in a pair of black satin pyjamas, a clatter of gold jewellery, and a pair of 6-inch multicoloured platform heels I'd bought for £10 from a stall on Ridley Road Market. I looked up and down the carriage, at people checking their phones, doing their makeup, staring out the window and reading free newspapers caked in train dust. Then I looked down at my flat front, my small handbag, my empty arms. There was nothing to indicate that I had just undergone the most considerable transformation of my life. No badge, no sling, no buggy, no bump. Breast milk was gathering quietly beneath my skin. I could feel the tingle of my breasts filling up like pins, like someone preparing a water bomb. But nothing about the sight or smell of me suggested that I was still growing a person with my body. From the way I was standing, nobody could tell that I'd only recently knelt in a pool of lukewarm water and heaved a baby through my pelvis, feeling his elbows and knees knock against my ribs on the way out. The man sitting in the priority seat playing Candy Crush had no idea that I'd saved a child's life today when my son tried to throw a stick into the river and very nearly toppled in head first. The love, fear, insomnia, short-term memory loss, stripped bones, hallucinogenic tiredness, fight or flight responses, milk production and hours of solitary confinement, nobody could see any of it. Unless I started screaming chapters of Wind in the Willows or pole dancing on the handrail, none of these people would probably even notice I was here. And of course, this being London, at night, on public transport, even those things were unlikely to draw much attention. How many of these people, I wondered, were parents? How many of us were secretly carrying the survival of another around in our bodies? How many were trying to slip a parental-shaped body into a public world? How many existed in a state of parental eclipse? And how long would I feel like this? There is a phrase coined by the US paediatrician Harvey Karp in 2002 that often gets tossed around online message boards and WhatsApp groups. The fourth trimester. This refers, in part, to the evolutionary theory that as our human ancestors learned to stand and walk, rather than clamber about on all fours like our ape cousins, we came up against a rather serious physical conundrum. Walking upright saved energy, left our hands free to pick up and grab and eventually use tools, but it also narrowed our hips as our centre of gravity shifted to just above our legs. At the same time, our brains started to grow exponentially. Over 3 million years, the human brain quadrupled in size, which brings us to the conundrum. How can a narrow-hipped, bipedal mammal give birth to a baby with a huge skull protecting a useful but massive brain? If humans gave birth at the same stage of fetal development as chimps, every labour would rip the mother to death. Even now, as Bill Bryson points out in his book The Body, the average baby's head is 1 inch larger than the average woman's birth canal, a measurement he calls the most painful inch in history. And as we know, babies, even those pea-brained, hairy monkey babies seen in David Attenborough documentaries, need their milk-giving mothers in order to survive at first, which meant it was worth keeping us around. And so the theory goes we started to give birth earlier and earlier, to babies whose skulls had not yet fully fused into solid bone, to babies that cannot focus or control their head or sit up or do much of anything but scream and sob and sleep.